It is Wednesday. It's the day of the Bible study. We are busy with the program that I have outlined a week ago, as we will be looking at Palm Sunday, this Sunday on the 28th. However, the triumphant entry is preceded by certain encounters of Jesus with certain people, and today I would like to concentrate in one of those encounters as I am preparing for the 28th, where I will be focusing on the book of Matthew. Today, I am looking at the book of St. Luke, chapter 19, as Jesus is preparing for that entry to Jerusalem. I'm going to read it in English, that's King James, and those that have a Xhosa Bible, the old translation is page 1204. That's where I will be reading from verse 1 to verse 10. That is where I will be reading. I think before we proceed any further, allow me just to bow our heads in a word of prayer, that we may ask our God to guide us, to lead us in this interesting story. Bawo wethu osezulwini yisewenkosi yethu enguYesu. Siyaphinda namhlanje kulona uLosithathu, sifuna ukubulela ngolozithathu abadlulileyo othe wena imithandazo yethu wayiva, wasikhokhela, wasinceda khona ukuze ilizwi lakho silive into elitshoyo. We humble ourselves this evening before your holy presence. Help us, O God, as we struggle with the depth of your word. May we have an encounter with you, so that we may be transformed in who we are and become who we ought to be. We ask this in that wonderful name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Just before we even read this, I want you to listen to this. Every time I read the Gospels, recounting of Jesus' ministry, I am amazed, perplexed, flabbergasted at how every turn, route or path Jesus took was a planned season for someone to encounter him. Jesus entered and passed through Jericho, and this time it was Zacchaeus' season of visitation. Ndimangaliswa, ndikhwankqiswa ngalo lonke ixesha ndifunda ivangeli, ndijonga amabakala ohambo lukaYesu, ndimangaliswa ukuba kwezo ndawo Yesu ahamba kuzo, kuloo majiko-jiko endlela uYesu uthabatha ithuba nomzuzu wokuba adibane nomuntu othile, njengangokuba engena eJerikho edibana nale ndoda uZakeyu. Kwesinye indawo Yesu uyahamba uYesu waze wadibana nendoda ihleli ecam kwendlela imfama. uYesu uyahamba uYesu wadibana nomuntu onesilephere. uYesu uyahamba kuloo ndawo uYesu wadibana kunye nentombi umSamariya. uYesu uyahamba udibana nendoda esisikhulu egulelwa ngumqeshwa wayo. uYesu uyahamba udibana nentombazana inethombe legazi. uYesu uyahamba udibana nomuntu omkhulu uYayiro gulelwa intombi yakhe. uYesu uyahamba udibana nomngcwabo eNayina. uYesu kuloo ndawo kuloo kona buhlifekesini kona neDora udibana nomuntu apho sengxakini. yaphuma apho ungena igratini udibana nomuntu, uyehla ifekesini udibana nomuntu, ungena eWoma udibana nomuntu, ungena eSummerstrand, ungena eNewton Park. Kwezo zonke ihambo zakhe Jesus has this encounter with somebody, and it becomes a season of visitation to that particular person. I find that to be quite fascinating. Yanmangalisa loo. Chapter 19 reads as follows: And Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, which was the chief among the publicans, and he was rich. And he sought to see Jesus, who he was, and could not for the press, because he was little of stature. And he ran before and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him, and said unto him, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must abide at thy house. And he made haste and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all murmured, saying that he was gone to the guest with a man that is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said unto the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold. And Jesus said unto him, This day is salvation come to this house, for so much as he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. This is the word of the Lord. Eli lilizwi lenkosi. Unoyolo livayo agcine aze alenze. Zindanda, brethren. Verse 1 tells us that this man was a chief tax collector. He was a commission of SARS. Here in South Africa, it is Mr. Edward Kisvetter, who is the commissioner of SARS. He was appointed by the President of the Republic of South Africa, the Honorable Mr. Sir Cyril Ramaphosa. That's what verse 1 says. He was a chief collector, tax collector. Verse 2 tells us he was very rich. He was very rich. And verse 3 tells us he desired to see Jesus. Verse 4 tells us he was very short in stature. Let's just observe those 4 first verses. Just those 4 verses. And then it says he ran ahead. In other words, he went in advance. And then he climbed the sycamore tree because he knew Jesus was to pass that way. Let's just pause on that. A few things that we need to really look at them. I think the first thing that is very important here, this man, career-wise and in social circle and status, he had excelled. Kamanye magama ngokwensebenzo nezipho anazo nasekuhlaleni yayingumakhwekhwetha. He had excelled in wealthy and riches. He had enough to be noticed and recorded in the Bible. Wayengumuntu owayenemali oqaphelekayo ekuhlaleni neBhayibhile iyamkhanganya. However, the above achievements did not satisfy him. Deep in his heart, there was a desire to see Jesus. It's something that we need to understand about money. First and foremost, it is important for us to know that money is not evil. It is not even sin. In 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 10, it is the love of money that is the root of all evil. Because that love may motivate and drive you to do things that are evil. But money itself, it is not evil. It's very important for us also to understand that money can buy a lot of things. You can buy a house in the best location, the best plot strategically. However, money cannot buy a home. There is a difference between a house and a home. And money can buy the best expensive bed. It can be designed specifically for you, but money can't buy sleep. Money can't buy through friends. Money can't buy a peace of mind. Money can't buy health. And money can't buy joy. It's very, very important for us to understand that. So, despite the fact that he was rich, he had achieved so much, but somehow this man, he deep down in his heart, he had a desire that is not fulfilled. Somebody once said, in man's heart, there is a God-shaped vacuum that cannot be filled by anything. Not by money, not by material things, not by a person. It would only take God to fill in that vacuum. This desire, have you noticed this when you read this? This desire was met by obstacles from his physical stature to crowds surrounding Jesus. Lo mntu wayefuna umbona uYesu kodwa kwabakho izithintelo ngoba babebaninzi abantu ababekho ababehanqe uYesu. Kwathi ke ngenxa yesithomo sakhe, because of his physical challenge, he couldn't see Jesus. Because he was short in stature. But in terms of career-wise status, he was big. Can I tell you? He was big. But in terms of spiritual, he was very, very short. And spiritually, because he was very short, there were obstacles. The very possession and the very possessions. And this deep pocket full of money was an obstacle to him not to rise to this spiritual level that he would love to. So there is, you must be observant how the author explains that this man had a desire, but he had a physical challenge, and the desire was spiritual, and the challenge was physical, and yet at the same time, I can take the same thing and say he had a spiritual desire, and yet there were physical challenges that makes him not to arise to that physical or spiritual desire. I do not know, for instance, as you are listening to me now, what are your obstacles in reaching your spiritual upness, the level that you should. I'm sure you would agree with me, as I take it even in myself situation. I wouldn't stand here and claim that I can acclaim that I've reached a level where I ought to be. Paul himself uthi andizibaleli ekuthini ndongamile ekumazini. Uthi I do this one thing, forgetting about what lies behind me, and I'm pressing forward. Ndingafunyanwa ndikwimo ndingenabo bamulungisa, which means there was a sense of Paul that saying, I have not attained. And this man, that was this man's problem. He had these obstacles. He couldn't see Jesus. You know, there's something here. This man, he could have settled for another time. Maybe the people will be less. But as also as an important man, maybe he could make a kind of an appointment, right, to see Jesus, like Nicodemus. Nicodemus came in the evening, and he set that appointment to meet Jesus. That was arranged. But the woman at the well, there was no appointment. It was really a divine encounter. The woman went there to fetch water, and Jesus was sitting at the well. Let's leave that one at that. So this man could have settled for another time where there will be less people. Or maybe he can meet him in one of my friend's house. Or seeing that he has this social status, he could have kind of invited Jesus to visit him. There are so many excuses that he could have given. I'm tempted to ask this question from you. What excuses do you have in having an encounter with Jesus? But the desire to see Jesus was too strong that he thought of a solution. He was so desperate to see Jesus. Ilandumiso kanene iti njengeqhama litsalela emfuleni wamanzi, unjalo Thixo umphefumulo wami ukutsalela kuThixo ophilileyo. Like a deer pants for water. Uvele iqhama liphakamisa inhloko lingawasezela amanzi 15-20 kilometers away, liva ivumba ukufuma komoya ovela kulo direction libalekele ke lokuqala lileqa lo manzi. Sometimes, I don't know, have you ever driven, maybe you're going to Johannesburg, you pass Bloemfontein, you see those clear roads ezibheka lamaqala semaGauteng, ubone uthonga phambili ufike ngathi indlela lena xa kushushu, because of the reflection of the sun, ingathi indlela inamanzi, ingathi kwamanzi, and the more uya ufika lamanzi aye ebhekela. Yabona unqaniwe ke, as you are coming, as uba ufika ufuna siba lamanzi aye ayibhekela. Sometimes singabantu abanjalo kukwamanzi, kukwizinto ezikhangeleka ingathi ngamanzi, kukwizinto ezingathi unqando lwakho zingaleneza, zise zisuke ezi zinto zikukhame, zikukhame, ziyathembisa. Babathandekayo, ziyathembisa. Cinga umnyusisi umnyusisi owayeshemntwana wayephangelele kwiindawo ziphucukileyo ezihlalele neflat yakhe, usisi wabantu ugrosala kwaUlwets, unxiba impahla online, uneemoto zakhe, uhleli impilo erayithi, waze wabona la manzi amthembisa la manzi ingathi angayifeza unxanwa nalo. Waphelela eHunters Creek, phelela eHunters Creek, ephucwe yonke into kanti ayimanzi la. Asikho kuloo nto ke. And this guy had this desire. He had this desire. He thought of a solution. The reason that I'm saying that he thought of, maybe there is a water there is something that you see that you think it's water, and you are trying to find a solution in order for you to get there. But when you get there, only to find out lendo ayimanzi. So before you take a decision, make sure that what you see is not something that looks like water. Let's get into Zacchaeus' strategy. He ran ahead. Go in advance. He climbed a sycamore tree. Go to a higher level. Now remember that he's a commissioner. This guy is a commissioner. That's a very high position in the country. So this guy climbing the tree, it's in his nature. He runs ahead. He goes in advance and he climbs a tree. He gets himself into a higher level. That's very, very important. And he knew Jesus was to pass that way, which means that he has made his homework. He has studied which route is Jesus going to take. Very, very clever. It's very, very clever. It is important, and as we go ahead, we need a position or position ourselves in an upper level to be in the right position. Listen here, you know that you can be in a higher level but not in a right position, not on the right route. You can be in a higher level, but that does not necessarily mean that you are in a good position. Did you sometimes say? So this guy wanted just to make sure, because it would have been useless or in vain if he ran ahead, used the efforts to climb a tree in the wrong path, which Jesus was not passing. You understand what I'm saying? Maybe I'm speaking to somebody now. You are in a high position, but it's a wrong path. It's a wrong path. You are married to this person. He is high, socially, economically, and everything else. but it's a wrong path. Let us not forget, let us remember that what was leading him was a desire to see Jesus. At this stage, I'll pause a moment here and ask you 2 questions or 3 questions. The first question that I want to ask you, where are you? Now, must be quick uyiphendula la mbuzo. Uhlamba ndiserumini ebhedini okanye ndise-dining room okanye sitting room. That question is deeper than that. Let me give you an example so that you can understand that question. If you come here in Exodus, I think it is in chapter 3. It is in chapter 3, in verse 9. It is after the fall of man. uThixo uyehova uThixo wambiza uAdam. Masiqala u-8 man, u-8 uthi u-8 basiva isandla sikaYehova uThixo ehamba emyezweni empepheni yasemini, basuka bazimela uAdam nomkakhe ebusweni bukaThixo. Did somebody say, you see, isono, sin made Adam and Eve in Genesis chapter 3 verse 8 when they heard the presence of God in Eden, and then they were shaken azimela, and they went to hide. They ran away from the presence of God. That's verse 8. And verse 9 says, Uyehova uThixo, and Jehovah God called Adam, and he said, Adam, where are you? Upina. Now, that's the question I'm asking from you now. Where are you? Before you answer that question, don't give me your geographical location, because that was not the question. And Adam understood the depth of the question, because you hear that from his response in verse 10. What yena? And he said, Ndive isandi sakho emyezweni ndasuka nduyika. You see, where are you? He does not say, God, as you are entering the Garden of Eden, as you turn to your right-hand side, there is a big tree, and behind that tree, there is a scrub. That is where I am with my wife. He's not giving a geographical location. He gives his emotional and psychological status when God asks, where are you? And he goes to the extent that of saying, so that he doesn't wait for God to ask, ngokuba ndihamba ze ndazimela, because I am naked. Now, the question I was asking, where are you? Second question is, why are you there? So that you understand, Adam, you know, about the civilization so kwakho ndoyika. Right? The West State ndoyika. Why? Ngokuba ndihamba. That's the reason. That is the reason that when you came, I didn't embrace you as we usually do when we meet, so that I can give you a report and accountability about the umyezo lona I'm responsible for as a manager, as you have delegated authority over me to oversee umyezo. Now and again you come and visit us, but this time when you came, we ran away. And that's a question I'm asking you. Why are you there? I don't know. I don't know. I'm asking you, where are you? You could be there totally broken. Totally broken. In tears. You could be there with your husband, and yet you are not there. Or your husband can be there with you, and yet he is not there. Maybe there's somebody that you have walked out of your life, or you have just walked out of somebody's life, and you are broken. And the question is, why are you there? Why are you in that state of brokenness? Now listen to this. Our God understands our struggles, our thoughts, our words, our motives, in every action we do according to Psalm 139. Indumiso ya khulu amashumatatu anethoba 139 from verse 1. There's something I want to read in this psalm. Maybe you in fact, if you read that psalm, you will notice that psalm is broken into 6 verses: 1 to 6, 7 to 12, 13 to 18, Janunja. 1 to 6, it speaks of the divine omniscience, and then 7 to 12, it divine omnipresence, and then divine omnipotence. But there's something that I want to show you in that first stanza of verse 1 to 6, whereby it says, uYehova undigoqaqoqile. O Lord, search me. O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. The original, it does not say, thou hast searched me and known me. It says, thou hast searched me and known my heart. Not me, my heart. Uyayazi inhliziyo yami. Uyakwazi ukuhlala kwami nokusuka kwami. Uyaziqonda izicamango zami nakude. Ukuhamba kwami nokulala kwami uyakwela. Qhelene nendlela zami zonke. Ngokuba akukho lizwi elulwimini lwami ongalaziyo ke. Yehova kanye. Ngasemva nangaphambili undingqangile. Wasibeka phezu kwami isandla sakho. Kubalulekile kumoko kwazi kuphezulu undingqibele. In other words, what it does there, it's very, very important for you to understand. It speaks, you know my heart, you know my thoughts, you know my actions, you know my words. That is what that verse says. Verse 1 to 6. You have searched me and you know my heart, you know my thoughts, you know my actions, you know my words. Have you noticed that? The first two, heart and thoughts, are the inner. And then actions and words is the outer. Because it says, you know my heart, you know my thoughts, you are acquainted with all of my ways, not a word in my tongue that you do not know. So that's how much God knows us. Wazinhliziyo, wazingcamango, wazizenzo, wazamazwi ethu. That's the omniscience of God. Ulwazi lukaThixo ngathi. Now listen to this now. Masidlule kulandumiso because andikho kulandumiso. Now sibuyele kule ndoda isisityeli, le ndoda isisityeli, le ndoda isisityeli, le ndoda ingusaziwayo, le ndoda ibaleke phambili, le ndoda ibaleke phambili, le ndoda ibaleka phambili, le ndoda lena eyokhwela emthini, in a route that you are sure that Jesus is going to pass. He wanted to see Jesus, but there were obstacles that are causing him not to be able to see Jesus. And based on that, he made a decision. Now remember, I've asked you a question. Where are you? And why are you there where you are? Then I said, you need to understand that the God we serve, he knows your heart, he knows your thoughts, he knows your actions, he knows your words. Who heart, no thoughts, that is the inner. And then who action and words, it is the outer. That you get in Psalm 139, the first 6 verses. Msinyane ke sibuye lapha kulo 19 iphake la ndoda. That's what verse 4 says. La ndoda iphake ikhwele phake ithane amen ikhwele pha la ndoda, khwele pha la ndoda. uYesu wade wafika kula ndawo. That's verse 5. uYesu wathina, uYesu wafika uYesu kule ndawo. Right? And it is interesting how the people who were surrounding Jesus, the ones who blocked his access, kukho abantu apha ababengumqobo ukuba angamboni uYesu. Hence, law obstacle made him to take this informed decision. I'm asking you, are there any people that you seem to perceive them as umqobo, as obstacles in your spiritual now, before I get into this thing, you need to understand that as a tax collector, he was working for a Roman Empire, being a Jew. As a result, he was despised by other Jews. They were perceived as traitors. Aba bantu abamamkelanga, uzake akamkelwanga ngabantu bakhe. Aba bantu bazi obstacles kuye, ngabantu abamqaphelayo. And banezizathu zokuba bamqaphele. Now I want you to listen to this. Zacchaeus' occupation made him rich, but he was only a poor man. He was rich financially, and spiritually he was poor. He was very poor in the things of God. Now, listen to this. Zacchaeus, like all of us, was born into spiritual poverty. He was born a sinner. And like us, lived in the life of the sinner. No matter how good or how moral person appears on the outside, we are all sinners. Roma chapter 3. Sonke sonile sasilela eluzweni lukaThixo. Ndumiso 51. Ndakhawulwa ndazalelwa nguma esonweni. Now, this is very important. Umoya ongcwele was already working on Zacchaeus. Kukho into eyayinika uZakheyi ukungonwabi, unqano olungekhe lwanezwe ngamanzi. And Zacchaeus knew that the answer was to his problems, it is with Jesus. So, before Zacchaeus started to seek God, God started to seek him. The same is true today. I'm talking to you, Klonda Ukuyo. God is after your soul. God is seeking you. You better respond. Now listen to this. He runs ahead, he climbs the cycle tree. Here was a rich man, an important man. Here was a man already despised by the Jews. Here was a man who swallowed all his pride and gave up all his dignity so that he could see Jesus. There was nothing more important to him than this encounter. He acted like a child. He humbled himself like a child to see Jesus. Maybe that is what you need to do. Remember, it was Zacchaeus was seeking. But it was Jesus who found him. Because before we seek, God is seeking us. Uyesu, at that moment, he came to Jericho to find Zacchaeus. Now listen to this. Let's go back to this verse again. Though he was hated by the Jews, yet Jesus loved him. The reason that I'm mentioning that there could be people that really you know that they don't like you or they don't love you, and they could have valid reasons for not liking you. Laweyo Zacchaeus babesitya imali zabantu, they collecta imali more than they were supposed to collect. They were very, very corrupt. But despite that, God sought him and he loved him. You may be hated by every person on earth, but you are loved by Jesus. Now listen to this now. Andifunele verse ke ngoku. Ithi ke le verse akufika kulo ndawo, that is Jesus, when he came to that spot, wakhangela phezulu uYesu. Apha emthini ume phansi komntu uYesu kwele ulapha phansi komntu uYesu. Wayibona, wambona uZakheyu, wathi kuyo, Zakheyu, khawuleza uhle kuba namhlanje nimelwe ukuhlala endlini yakho. You see, in your salvation is not something for next week, for next month, for next year. I know as you are Glenda Uguyo, you are sure in the but it's not the right time for you now. Maybe next year, you know, okay, you are just about to retire. When you retire, I don't know who told you that God wants you when you have retired. Or you want to get married first, and what have you? And Jesus says, today, I think what I'm Kolosa, eti musubienza khuni inhliziyo yakho. Inamhlanje imini yakho yosindiso. Don't talk about tomorrow. Can I tell you something? You have no guarantee for tomorrow. Do you know that akunidi nokugula for ukuze ungabikho, ungalala ungabikho ngomso? Now listen to this. He responds. I am amazed at the response yale ndoda. Ithi le ndoda xa irespondayo, wakhawuleza ke wehla wamamkela ngobubele evuya. He came down and he accepted him and embraced him with great joy. Now, let me ask you, ngophi lo mthi ukhwele kuwo? And the challenge I'm putting to you today, khawuleza yihla. And Jesus is inviting you, come down. Do you know that even a position in the church can be a tree that you are climbing? And to be quite honest, you have never had this encounter that Zacchaeus has. You ran ahead to a position because we are position people. Sometimes it's not even running ahead. We have this one when ufika uthiwe wasiswe uthiwe ke inkonzo ifana inkonzo ayimameli inkonzo ayimameli uyakobi uthi uyakobi aba bantu xa befika ezinkonzweni bayazifikela abantu athatha kuhlaswa phambili. Thina abantu balapha sihlaliswe emva kuthiwe laa mntu uve kuthiwa laa mntu usekomitini yezimali ufika izolo because unemali uye ozawuba ngosihlalo lo mntu akakahle emthini afike ufika ekula high position in terms of status socially afike apha athathwe and Jesus says come down. Now listen to this. Baye bonke bakuyibona loo nto bakroka esithi ungene waya kulala kwindoda engumuni. Efemelo basikwile abantu you uYesu ade ayongena endlini yomoni onjeya kubo bongaboni. Wema ke uZakeyi wathi kuyo inkosi uyabona isiqingatha sempahla yam Nkosi ndisinika amahlwempu nokuba ndidle into kabani ngokumtyhola ndimbuyisela kane. Utheke uYesu kuye namhlanje kufika usindiso kule ndlu ngokuba naye engunyana kaAbraham. Kubunyana womntu weza kufuna nokusindisa oko kulahlekileyo. Let's close with this. Let's close with this. Verse 1 to 5, there's a desire. Verse 5 to 6, he dined with Jesus. 7 to 10, he deferred to Jesus. Ngamanye amagama, 1 to 5, he was called. 5 to 6, he was challenged. 7 to 10, he was changed. He was called, he was challenged, he was changed. Ingxaki yethu ezinkonzweni asidesifikelele pha of challenging aba bantu siyaboyika siyabahlonipha. We don't challenge them, and they never get to that point of changing. Lamdu uza really any desire, a sincere from that verse 1 to Eva ubizo lukaThixo, but simoyike lamdu to challenge him. As a result, lamdu remains what he is. Ahlale kulamthi, and is never challenged, and it never changes. Remember the question I asked you. Where are you? And why are you there where you are? God bless you. Uzuko, imbeko, indili, ukuhlonipheka kokwakho.